past, fatal heart impact, past painful scars. In fact, I blast tasteful bars and pass. I back up my actions, fact don't ask, grab reactions, jacked attack with every word, then act with class as they hear me snap. I got nothing to lose, cause I fought and felt the bruise. Now I'm not the one confused, call the shots and they produce. I ain't lost, I'm finally loose, pick a new silver excuse. I need the views to boost me to a new abuse of being used. Everybody wants a piece now, y'all can rest in peace now. You're dead to me, so peace out. Remember you're discreet now, get ready for defeat now.
Alrighty. Hello everybody. This is Kiru's show here. And now, whenever we last left off, we were talking about Izuki Midoriya. And she just had a brief encounter with Ghost. Now, with that being said, that was a month and a half ago, and it was actually their first encounter with people within different projects, or what you can just simply just call a stray from a project. Now, at this point in time, they are not strays. Stray would imply that they are no longer on a leash. However, Ghost is still on her leash. I would explain it a bit better, but I believe that that actually is very straightforward and to the point. Now, think of it like how Izuki was a part of the Black Widow project, found out it was corrupt, tried to get away, and people were sent after her. Now, with that being said, let's continue. We do actually have today. It has been 1 week since they have encountered Ghost, and a lot more information is happening. Izuki actually sitting inside of a very high-tech office, as she actually is on the computer. Now, this computer is not a regular one. It seems to be very advanced. And the screen is actually a hologram, along with the actual keyboard. And they do seem to be built into the desk. Izuki just typing down, and basically trying to get the hang of this. As she's typing in certain things about a report, before entering them down and actually sending them onto a list. Her then actually putting her hand on the screen, and grabbing the piece, basically grabbing the piece out of it and turning around, throwing it onto the screen behind her. As she then actually does begin to at least look through it a bit better, before taking a step backwards. Now, this place does hold very advanced technology, and Izuki, she really loves it. She's been able to actually get some upgrades for her own wrist bracers, and in fact, she's been able to make a heavier body armor suit for herself. Now, at this point in time, she's not perfected the exact makeup of it. However, it is somewhat within development. She's still trying to make sure it is lightweight, compact, and does at least hold true to the design of her former suit. She's thought about changing the color scheme, but black is really the only color she would wear, especially because it does help her blend in, along with some of the high-tech things built into the suits that do actually help her fade into the background better. Now, she won't go over all the specifics about the designs, but she does at least usually leave that up to the tech team. Now, with that being said, let us go over to everyone else. Izuki, she does actually walk out of the office and go over and begin to talk to some people, giving a quick briefing over what they do need to do. They are going to be going after her actually pulling up a screen that does display the entire map setup that we collected from the last part. Her telling her team that they are going to be going to this base, and her squad will actually be advancing towards this one. Now, we do actually have somebody walk up to Izuki, and ask her if this is really going to be a good idea, and if they think that they're going to be finding more weapon projects. Izuki simply just stating that that is most likely true. They have not gotten through the codes and other things from the rest of the AIM's systems. In fact, AIM might be hiding files in plain sight, or their system possibly just does not keep them on public records, meaning that there might be parts of this base that are not on file or on record, especially because it's basically an underground city. Now, with that, she actually does shake the hand of this person and send them off on their mission. As she then actually does walk over to a table and begin to brief her own squad. Now, with that, Izuki she does walk over, and you have Shinsho, Monoma, and a few other people. Her putting her hands on the table and just beginning to talk to them, stating that they have gathered a lot of intel and information. Now, she does actually talk about Ghost, as they do want to call her, because of her strange abilities. She's able to walk through walls, and bullets do not faze her. Now, Izuki does actually talk about how Ghost is possibly another project of AIM, as Shinsho actually does take over, talking about how, for those of you who are not aware, or are not as caught up as they are, that AIM, their projects, are a bit different. Going on to state that some of them were actually in trial phases. However, they were not full-blown into the entire program, as these three are. Talking about how they've all been stripped away from their families virtually at young ages, as soon as their quirks developed, and about how they've been trained, virtually brainwashed, and thrown into combat scenarios. And they have had no choice about it. Now, they then continued stating that they were able to get away before anything serious did actually happen. And there are actually quite a few of the lucky ones. Shinsho then actually informing them all that along with that they actually do also have another base, or another AIM facility base. The base is virtually abandoned, or as far as he is aware, he used it to train Trap Izuki, thinking that she was after him. Now, more and more the briefing does go on, and they are then informed of the weaponry that they are going to be given. Now, somebody actually does walk out and sit down back on the table, virtually just spewing out weapons left and right to different people. As Izuki, she actually is handed a few strange weaponry, and possibly even grenades. Now, the person goes on explaining the weapons. This might sound a bit more high-tech or sci-fi, but laser weapons. That's it. That's literally all the person leaves it at. If they try explaining it and getting into the science about it, they'd be here for hours. And you actually have Shinsho, who does particularly take a liking to a very big gun. And he actually does pick it up, asking the person exactly what does this thing do. And the person simply just states one simple sentence. They're not even too sure. However, the specs did qualify that weapon to be disastrous levels. Now, Shinsho doesn't really believe that, as he actually does go and want to try and take it for a test drive. However, there are other multiple weapons. Now, with that out of the way, they then do actually get on a plane, or a jet, and do actually begin to head out to their objective. Now, after a few hours of flying around, they eventually do land in a forest and are actually on comms with somebody. Now, they are simply just talking to the base that they are headed to, using fake aliases and verification codes that are real, talking about how they are bringing in strays from a project. Now, they are actually able to get inside the base, and Shinsho does use his brainwashing quirk to actually open the doors, talking to the person on the other end of the line and brainwashing them, getting full access and a welcoming party. Now, they actually do walk in. Izuki, she quickly just runs in, and so does Shinsho. Him with that giant gun on his back, as he actually does at least carry 2 new weapons. And he actually just pulled the triggers. Now, the blast these weapons do actually send off. You can either set them to stun or kill. Shinsho obviously has them on kill. And you actually have Monoma, who he himself actually does pop a few pills in his mouth, as he actually does grow a bit in size, and his strength actually does go up through the roof, as he starts to run in. Now, some of the people on their side do have some very interesting quirks, and Shinsho has used blood capsules. Now, he also did use his performance boosters, mix them into the capsules, and making virtually copy-enhanced pills. Now, with all that, they quickly do get to work, busting through this base and tearing through multiple different people. As we actually do have Izuki, running through a hallway and firing off in different directions. Firing 3 shots in front of her, going to an intersection, and firing to the left and to her right. As you actually have beams flying past her, and her simply just standing there and firing in both directions. As a missile is actually blasted at her, her quickly just throwing herself backwards and quickly just aiming in the same direction, still firing. As the missile goes blowing up to her right, before Monoma quickly does actually run past her. Izuki basically twirling to her left, and looking in one direction. As we actually have Shinsho, who does pop out from behind the corner, holding, a submachine gun in one hand, and the weapon, or the laser weapon, in his right. Multiple different people seeing the Winter Soldier, as he actually has pulled the trigger to both guns. Now, with that, the machine gun immediately just begins to fire. As the gun in Shinsho's right hand, it is actually charging up. And everyone, they quickly do look at the beam, before trying to retreat. And Izuki, she actually has to turn around and see what happens. The entire hallway is coated in a red beam. And Shinsho blasts away a hallway that was around 500 meters long and destroyed it. Now, the floor somewhere above them does actually somewhat begin to collapse into that part of the hallway, or into that part of the base. And Shinsho, he just looks down at his weapon and smiles, thinking for 1 second. This is his new favorite weapon, and anyone who tries to take it from him will be killed. Now, Izuki, she actually was quite impressed with that, as she actually does bring up her Widow's gauntlets and press down on the triggers. This being where something actually does happen. They extend outwards and immediately just spring up into the air, as they actually do go past Izuki's hands. Think of it like, what's the best way of saying it? If you were to load a mechanism and pull it backwards towards your arm, it'd launch outwards and forwards. I can't think of the best way to say it. Now, basically that does actually happen, and rockets do actually begin to fire from the housings, many of them beginning to blow apart the walls and actually hit some of their targets. Izuki still actually firing the guns. Now, she actually does bring her hand out upwards and basically throw a fist up into the air. This thing retracting back in before it does actually slide back down into her wrist gauntlets. Now, with that, she eventually does actually run out of ammo, and she actually does begin to run through the facility firing off her Widow's Spite, or her taser rounds. Now, she basically does go back to using her regular gauntlets for a minute, as her and her team are eventually able to secure the base. And Izuki, she actually does get in front of the commander, as he's quite confused, wondering exactly who are they. And the man actually does see two people, someone taking off their mask and actually revealing their face, as we have a shorter haired version of Monoma, looking directly at the man, with a cold, blank expression. And the man, he is actually quite surprised to see this young boy, as we also do have Shinsho, who takes the mask off of his face and actually does shake his hair, before pulling the hair tie out of it. Now, the man's actually quite surprised to see both of them, talking about how he remembers their files. Now, you actually do have Shinsho, who does set down his heavy weapon, and Monoma, who actually does walk forwards and look at the man. Both the two just standing there. As Izuki, she actually does take a few steps backwards, and tell them that if they want to torture and interrogate him, that's all them. But they do want to understand what that project is. Keep that in mind. Now, Shinsho actually does begin to use his quirk, trying to get information out of the man, asking him about the projects. The man trying to bite his tongue, and fight against Shinsho's brainwashing. Now, he is able to do it to some success. However, with Shinsho constantly pestering him, and Monoma basically making sure he doesn't bite his tongue off, they are able to get some successful answers. And they do learn about it. The man completely falling underneath Shinsho's brainwashing, and then actually stating what their project is. The project you're looking for, Weapon X. It's simple. The KGB. They're developing their own weapons. Soldiers. We had to make our own. Fight against them. They're just crazy. If it violates anything they stand for, they take it down. And they're lunatics. They can't use quirks in wars or fights. Not internationally, anyways. But if they can make a soldiers who are enhanced and crazy strong, then it does make sense. However, if their quirks do somehow get brought up in combat, that is at least not liable, or is at least not the right workaround they could use. Then I'm going to state that they also did want to make their own projects. It does somewhat go against that very law, but at this point, who is following it? Now, the man does continue talking, and reveal that he was actually part of a unit. Now, he does actually go on talking about the incident that they encountered years ago, where there was a fight, and somebody lost. Now, the man goes on to explain it in explicit details, and Monoma, he actually does bring his hand up to Shinsho's shoulder, and explain to him that he doesn't have to be here for this part. Shinsho just getting angry. And while the man is explaining it, he punches him directly across the face with his metallic arm, him smashing against the ground and breaking his jaw, along with being knocked out, as Shinsho angrily storms off. Now, as for what they did actually hear about the incident, let us cut back a few years ago, around the age, I want to say that Shinsho would be around the age of 8 years old. And we actually do have a part of his life story. A young boy who goes through rigorous training, learning, and different forms of mental manipulation. He's been told many different stories, all conflicting with each other. And we actually do have today. Shinsho is actually supposed to fight against and go against a man. The very teacher who is teaching them all how to fight, or how to do basic boxing. Now, Shinsho is on the mats, being told by this man to give him everything he's got. Try to use his quirk as well. Now, Shinsho does actually listen, trying to use his quirk. However, the man is barely even affected by it. Shinsho trying to instruct the man to stop. The man doesn't stop, as he does actually get Shinsho pinned to the ground. And he does actually bring his hand up, throwing it down directly by Shinsho's face, and punching a hole in the ground, telling Shinsho that if he does not comply again next time, or actually give it his all like he knows he isn't, then their next fight will end with him dying. Now, with that, the man, he then does actually go to walk away. And Shinsho, he was angry by this, shouting as loud as he can for the man to stop. And the man completely froze. Him trying to move. As Shinsho then actually does instruct the man to come back over here. To which the man did actually follow, trying to fight against it. As he actually does stand in front of Shinsho. And Shinsho then actually does instruct him to give him his gun. Now, the man did actually listen, and Shinsho was handed a revolver. To which he actually does take out the housing, or the I cannot think of the name for this. The cylinder for the revolver. There we go. Now, Shinsho, he drops 5 bullets out of it. And he actually does look at one, asking the man if this is what he wanted, for him to use his quirk. He's seen the adults play this game, and he's quite curious about it. Shinsho putting the 1 bullet in, and putting the gun back into a load, putting the cylinder back in the gun, and spinning the barrel, as he then actually does pull back the hammer, pointing it directly in between the man's eyes and pressing it directly in between directly above his nose. That small little space, asking the man if this is all he wanted. As Shinsho does actually pull the trigger, and you hear a click. The man actually surprised that this young boy actually did pull the trigger. Him actually getting angry, and going to fight back. Now, he was able to immediately break out of Shinsho's brainwashing after he pulled the trigger again and there was no success. And he actually did jump onto his feet, grabbing Shinsho by his wrist, and slapping it across the face with his right hand. As, with his right hand, out of anger, he goes to grab the gun and yank it out of Shinsho's hands. However, he has super strength, and a firm grip on this young boy's arm. Now, that was as far as the man got to. However, that is not where the story stops. The untold parts of what happened next, as Shinsho lays on the ground screaming and crying. The man, enraged as somebody, does actually run into the room. And they do actually see a prodigy, or what should be a prodigy, crying and badly injured. As the man is told that he went too far. However, he explains what has happened, talking about how the young boy got a hold of his gun, and that he needed to be punished. Now, with that, the boy was taken away, and the amount of damage that was found to his arm, they could have fixed it. However, with how clean it was removed, it does seem that they could make an adjustment, an enhancement if you would. And they basically misinformed Shinsho about his arm. They could not save it. However, that does not mean his career is over. They can make him a better one. And they can actually enhance it to be better. And he agreed. After that, they did actually enroll him in a bio-enhancement program, or a bionic limb program. Now, Shinsho actually did agree to this, and he did eventually go through operations to get the arm made and implanted. Now, they did also have to wire it down a certain way into his body, and he did eventually get it right. Now, the very moment he did actually get this arm, or the perfect adjustment size, he was ecstatic. He's able to move it around and treat it like a normal hand, and this one had no flaws. However, he is still growing, and eventually the arm would become too short. So, they've made more models of it that Shinsho can quickly just switch off with. Now, with that, Shinsho did begin more intense training, along with taking a form of a super soldier serum. Now, with that being said, whenever he did go against a rematch against this man who tore off his arm, he did actually kill him. Shinsho showing no remorse to him. And he was actually found. Him on his knees, and on the man. Him just going back and forth, punching away over and over and over again at the man's face. As there is that particular sound he's making, and the look in his eyes whenever they tried to pull Shinsho off of the man. Shinsho was smiling, and his eyes showed complete insanity. So, he was viewed as possibly defective. However, this incident just meant they kept him on a tighter leash, and put more programs within his mind, or more codes that they would use if he became a bit more aggressive again. Now, that was the part that no one else heard. However, I'm explaining it to you guys. Now, with all that being said, I do hope you guys enjoyed, and have an amazing night. I will catch you guys in the next part.